Athletic Director Todd Stewart. We'll go, Todd, if you want to make an opening statement, and then we'll jump to questions from there from the group.
Sure, yeah, thank you. I don't have any announcements per se. Really, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Any questions you have about any of our programs, fall, winter, or spring, the national landscape, really whatever. I'll be as transparent as I can. I don't know anything about the JFK files, but other than that, I'm happy to help with anything you guys want to talk about.
I think start off with basketball postseason. There's probably some confusion or questions about why the Lady Toppers aren't playing after conference tournament. Just tell me a little bit about that decision, how that came about.
Sure. Well, currently the WNIT is the number 3 tournament for women's basketball. And historically, if you look at all of our sports, we have never played in the 3rd best postseason tournament. Not just a women's basketball thing. Men's basketball has never played in the CIT or the CBI. And across the board, we historically have just not done that. Also, specifically to women's basketball, that's a program that has always competed at the highest level. And it's a program that's been to 20 NCAA tournaments and a program that's been to 3 Final Fours. And the goal every year is the NCAA tournament, and 68 teams go to that. And then the number 2 tournament now for women's basketball is the WBIT. If we had been offered a bid to the WBIT, we definitely would have accepted that. That's 32 teams. So you take the top 100 teams off the table, and then you get into the WNIT. And if you look at some of the teams in the WNIT, and this isn't meant to disparage any individual team, everybody does what they feel they need to do, but there's teams in there with losing records. There's teams in there that are barely 500, and I just don't think that's competing at the highest level. I just don't think that's what our program has always done. So I know that some people probably wish that we had done it, but I also know there's a lot of people that are glad that we didn't. So that was really the reasoning behind that.
And was that a decision that was made before this season, or is it something that you kind of settle on during the season, or is it just a ironclad policy?
I don't want to say it's a policy because, I mean, times change, people change, and that doesn't mean there's never a day that we do that. You know, we'll always reevaluate it, but it was a decision made during the season, just like with the men's program. You know, Hank and I talked, and there was a decision made we won't go to the CIT or the CBI, and so really the decision was just consistent with how we've always done it.
You worry at all about the optics of it, though, because, I mean, you look at that WNIT field, and you've got basically the 4 and 5 Conference USA teams are in that. You guys are the 3 based on seeding in the conference tournament, and you're not playing.
Well, again, I just think it's a program that's been to 20 NCAA tournaments. You know, I don't know that those programs have been to 20 NCAA tournaments, and everybody has to do what they feel is best. But, you know, when you're essentially playing for 101st, that's never really been what the goals of our program have been. That doesn't mean we won't reevaluate it and take a look at it, but we just made a decision consistent with how we've always done it.
The WNIT is a pay-to-play tournament, too. Does that factor in?
Well, it does. I mean, certainly, because that's another component. Obviously, if you go to the NCAA tournament or the NIT on the men's side or the WBIT on the women's side, there are a lot of things that are reimbursed and a lot of things that are taken care of. With the WNIT, there are not. You have to pay to host a game, and you obviously, if you go on the road, you have expenses. And we've just got to be smart with our resources, too. I mean, we're in the bottom 25% in the nation among all FBS schools in budget. So we don't have stacks of cash sitting around here. We have to be smart with what we do, and you know, that certainly also plays into it.
Can you talk a little bit about baseball's start? Obviously, it's a historic start for the program also, but there's also been maybe a little bit of questions as far as not having any broadcasts when they're playing at home so often. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I guess I'll start with the TV part. So our television arrangement with Conference USA requires us to televise every football, men's basketball, and women's basketball game that is not part of the conference's TV package. And you know, we have a production budget, you know, that Scott manages. So after the football, men and women's basketball games are selected, then we see what we have left, and then we make the decisions on how many games we're going to do with volleyball, soccer, baseball, and softball. And those are usually about the same number of games for each of those sports. And the coaches are given the number of games that they have, and then they choose the ones. And in the case of baseball, you know, Mark wanted to do primarily conference games. The Kentucky game I know we're doing also, but primarily conference games. We would love to do more. I mean, the games that we do aren't free. WKYU TV, which is our on-campus production group, they charge us over $600,000 a year to do the games that we're doing. So there's a cost associated with everything. Hopefully we can do more in the future, but that's why we do what we do right now and how it's decided what we do. And in terms of baseball itself, 19-1, just utterly remarkable. And I am surprised that we're 19-1. I think anybody that would sit here and say, "Oh, I thought we'd be 19-1." I mean, that'd be stretching it. But I will say this: 3 years ago, when our job was open, our program was not in a good place. You all remember that. But I mean, we were 18-36 overall and dead last in Conference USA. And I remember when we were interviewing people for the job. Number one, that was kind of a negative, obviously, that we hadn't had success. But the other thing that there was concern about among the people we talked to was the fact that, and we were open and honest about it, but it was the fact that we were going to be tearing down the baseball clubhouse and the hitting facility. Now, it would ultimately be built back within the Hilltopper Fieldhouse, but there'd be a period of time when they wouldn't have a clubhouse and they wouldn't have a hitting facility. And that was a real red flag for some people, but not for Mark. Like, the Mark never blinked. And when I was talking to him and shared our vision for baseball and where I hoped that we could go and what the goals were, he embraced the challenges. It was amazing just how he almost welcomed it. And I wish I had recorded our conversations, because everything that's happened in our program, the 2.5 years he's been the head coach, he said would happen. I mean, year one went the way he said it would be. He didn't get into like number of games we would win or anything like that, but we went from 36 losses before he was hired to, in year two, winning 36 games, and now this year 19-1. And he kind of walked me through, this is how I think year one will go, this is how I think year two will go, this is what we can be in year three and beyond. And it's played out exactly as he said it would.
Todd? Speaking of that, with the Hilltopper Fieldhouse, just a little maybe update on that and just like how that construction's going, and maybe a little bit.
It's going great, and Lauren, very excited about that, because that is really I don't want to say you're never really done with facility things. There's always things you can do, but that's the final big piece that we need. That's the one major thing that's been missing, since 2014. Prior to that, in the press box, we had actually done over $15 million of either new construction in the case of the softball, soccer facility, or just renovations of existing facilities. But the two big things that were missing were the press box, which was certainly a 1968 press box until last year, so that was nice to get that updated, and then the Hilltopper Fieldhouse, which will be huge. It'll be a game changer for all of our programs. Obviously football will benefit, baseball will benefit. They'll have a brand new clubhouse, a brand new hitting facility, brand new locker room, and then the band will have an area that they can practice in as well. And it's going great. The tentative time frame now for it to be done is right around September, October. So sometime this fall, certainly that'll be finished up, and we'll celebrate it and move in.
I just want to ask you, jumping over to men's basketball for a second, just your overall thoughts on Hank Flota's first year, getting a winning record, and what you think?
Yeah, well, I think when you evaluate anybody, you have to evaluate them based on what they have, the circumstances they faced, and what they did. And obviously the ending was disappointing for everybody, and mainly our players and coaches, but obviously everybody associated with the program. The final home game against Liberty and then losing to FIU in the tournament, and it wasn't what anybody had hoped for. So that was unfortunate for that group, because they'd had a lot of success and really won some meaningful games, and I kind of hated it for them to go out that way. But big picture wise, if you look at the evaluation, if you look at Steve Lutz's season, going into the tournament, we had won 19 games. But our non-conference schedule, we played 3 non-D1 teams, and we didn't play any power conference teams. And then if you look this year with Hank, going into the conference tournament, we won 17 games, but we only played 2 non-D1s, and we played Kentucky and Michigan on the road. And I think Conference USA this year, top to bottom, was the best it's been since I've been the athletic director. And unfortunately, we had a lot of injuries. And while injuries are part of the game, they are, some injuries are just hard to overcome. And I think the Babacar Faye injury just became too much to overcome. We overcame it at times, but consistently we didn't. I think we were 10-12 after he got hurt. And if you look prior to that, we were playing extremely well. I mean, we had really good wins. We had just beaten Murray in the game that he got hurt, but we went toe-to-toe with Grand Canyon on the road, who's in the NCAA tournament. We beat Lipscomb, who's in the NCAA tournament. played very competitively against Kentucky in Rupp Arena, and so momentum was building, and I know everybody was excited, and he went down, and that really changed the trajectory of our season. So that plays into the evaluation, but I have tremendous confidence in Hank. I think the way he navigated this year with everything I just explained, and really the role he had last year. I mean, you talk to Steve Lutz, he would tell you that we would not have had the season we had last year were it not for Hank Plona. So I'm excited to see the roster that he builds for next season and him leading this program moving forward.
It seems a little unclear with some of the junior college rulings for eligibility. Who can be back? Who's going to be back? What does the team even look like next year? Do you have any idea?
I wish I knew. So with respect to the junior college, the ruling was that it's a little confusing, like everything, right? It's a little confusing, but every junior college player whose eligibility would have expired this year now has another year left. So it's not like another year for every junior college player. Now, ultimately that ruling may be made, but right now it's just every current junior college player who has a year left. So that means that there obviously will be more players that will be available, but that also does not necessarily mean that every junior college player that we had that now has another year will come back here. I don't know that will be the case, because the other thing that's kind of playing into this year is, as everybody knows, it's the first year of the revenue share with the Power 4 programs. And I think that you're going to see some crazy spending, because everybody all of a sudden at those Power 4 programs has $20 million that they're going to allocate. And none of it's been allocated yet. And it reminds me, I worked for the Indianapolis Colts when NFL free agency started in 1993. And that first year of free agency, it was insane spending because nobody had allocated the kind of money that they could and that they had available. And you saw some crazy deals being made, and I think you're going to see that here too. I think elite players are always going to end up in a good place and will make a lot of money, but I think there's never been a better time to be an average player than right now too. You're going to have average players get superstar deals. You know, that's what you're going to see as we move forward in the short term for sure.
You bring that up, you think of a Don McHenry who would fall in that category of getting that extra year and would probably be pretty desirable on that market. Is there any chance that you could retain him if he wanted to stay here and you wanted to keep him?
I think it'll largely come down to the economics. You know, I think players, and understandably so, if I was a player, I'd feel the same way. They love being free agents, you know, and under the current system, basically everybody's a free agent every single year. So a lot of those guys, they want to test the waters, so to speak, you know, and they want to see what kind of opportunities that they have. And you know, it's a little early to know what we'll have in terms of who we'll bring back. But, you know, that kind of went into, we anticipated this and that's what really went into hiring Hank. And I think, you know, what I hope happens with Hank is what you see with Mark Reardon, is that their extensive junior college connections will enable them to get players that other people may not know of, you know, and we're going to have to do that. You know, we're going to have to uncover some gems that maybe other people aren't aware of. You know, we're not going to be able to outbid everybody, but you know, I'm confident that when we get to August and we have our roster, it'll be a solid one that could compete for a conference championship, because that will always be our goal.
Todd, the whole athletics community suffered a tough loss with Brett Chumley just a few weeks ago. How has the track program kind of just been dealing with that? You know, you've got your home meet coming up in just a few short days. Just what does that mean to him, his legacy, and how's everyone doing? Yeah,
it's been really tough, you know, and obviously really unfortunate and just terrible for the family. So unexpected like that, and, you know, hard on our players. I mean, because nobody saw it coming. But I think, you know, through adversity, oftentimes the best of people comes through, and really the whole program, they've just rallied around each other, and the players have supported each other, and the coaching staff has too. And administratively, we've tried to do everything that we can. And, you know, it's a cliche when you say you take things day to day and week to week, but that's really kind of how they've done it. And, you know, I think it's been inspiring the way that they've handled it. And but certainly, you know, the Chumley family will always be in our thoughts, and you know, we're going to continue to help them in every way that we can.
Tyson Helton was recently given that 4-year contract extension. Kind of going into spring ball here as they prepare for next season. There's been a lot of turnover, coach-wise and player-wise. Pretty much half the roster is new. With the ways of the transfer portal and stuff like this, just how Coach Helton has really been able to like guide that and kind of get used to that with being at a mid-major school and guiding that transfer portal and bringing new players in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big reason why we, did the extension with him. I mean, the success that he's had, other people are noticing. He had 3 different schools, contact him about openings that they had this past off season. And, there was a time when I thought that we might lose him, and it's just the reality of the business. But we looked at it like this: if we had lost Tyson, if he had taken another job somewhere else, and we opened our job up and we interviewed people, and ultimately we had announced somebody that as our new head coach, who had 6 years of Group of 5 head coaching experience, had been to a bowl game all 6 years, had won the bowl game 4 years, and played for a conference championship twice, everybody would probably say, wow, that's a really good coach. If you can hire somebody like that, you should. Well, that's Tyson Helton. I mean, that's who we have. So that's why we did the extension. And his ability to navigate the waters, like you just said, has been very impressive. I mean, I think we had a lot of portal losses last year, certainly, and we had a lot of seniors too. So, I mean, this is a massive roster turnover from 2024 to 2025. But in the past, he's handled all that extremely well and through various methods. But I think he navigates the portal as well as anybody, and it'll be a continual process. I think we'll probably add players after spring ball, and again, the roster won't be the roster in probably until August.
Speaking of the portal too, just looking at kind of your peer schools, the schools that are sort of in a similar boat as you guys, how competitive are you in the NIL and that space with that group at least?
Yeah, it would actually vary, because we have the traditional NIL that we have, and then we have the Red Towel Trust, the collective. And, through the Hilltopper Local Exchange and the collective, I think that both of those have helped us quite a bit. It is an arms race out there, and, we're going to have to, I feel like everything within athletics is working very, very well. I mean, if you look at when we went into Conference USA back in 2014, since then we've won 42 conference championships, and 11 sport programs have won a conference championship. That across-the-board success is really, really unique. And we've done it with true student athletes. 13 of our 14 sport programs have a team GPA of 3.0 or higher, and the one that doesn't has a 2.98. So it's working. That being said, you always have to be able to adjust. If we're only maintaining, we're falling behind. So we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to be aggressive in the NIL space and certainly play that game, or we'll lose out. We'll need help too, though. We really, truly will. If you look 3, 5, I guarantee you 3, 5, 7 years from now, the athletic programs that are the most successful, beyond what they can control, they will have 3 things in their favor. They'll have tremendous university support, they'll have tremendous support from the individuals in their community, and they'll have tremendous corporate support. And the ones that have those 3 will be successful. The ones that don't won't. That's just the reality of it. So we will have to continue to modernize and adapt and be creative, and we will. But we'll need help also.
Kind of talking a little bit, just I guess money-wise, but obviously budgets being tight and everything like that. One thing that I guess for media side and fan side is just noticing that it doesn't necessarily matter if, like for Western men's basketball, if they were winning every game or necessarily losing every game. It seemed like the crowd was just mediocre. There was a couple games where it seemed like the crowd was there, they were engaged, they really helped the team, boost the team at home, but then other times it just seemed like nobody was necessarily showing up. And so do you have any, plans to really kind of stay competitive in that way and get people to really just come out, buy tickets, support these guys? It's kind of, I know you all post a lot of things on social media, like with lower tickets and stuff, and it just seems like still people are not engaging the way that they should.
Yeah, I know. And the initial answer would be, we, as we always do this off season, we'll look at anything and everything and try to find new and creative ways to do things differently. I don't think it's ticket pricing. In some of the games, our ticket prices are lower than local high schools. So I don't think we're like pricing ourselves out of the market. And this is not meant as a criticism of fans, but I said I'd be transparent. This is just my honest assessment. I think we have some great fans. I really do. They're with us through thick and thin. They go to Huntsville. They're around all the time. But to me, a great fan base is one who comes to see you play when you play, regardless of who you play. I don't know that that's who we are right now. You know, I think it's conditional in a lot of ways. There's a lot of variables, and it's the same with football. There's a lot of variables that go into people coming to games. It's not just, hey, we're going to show up and see Western Kentucky play because we love the Hilltoppers and we don't really care who they play, because that's the most important thing right now in our day. We need more people like that. We have some like that, but ultimately we need more people like that. And that kind of ties into what I'm talking about when I say you look who's successful 3, 5, 7 years from now, those programs will have that. But some of that's on us too. I mean, we again, if we're only maintaining, we're falling behind. So we need to look at different ways of doing things to be creative, things to engage with students more because they bring energy. So we'll look at anything and everything.
It almost seems like a lot of the fans tend to come out for the big name opponents, the Power 5 opponents, not necessarily the games that are important to your team or your season. Is that something that you've observed, or is that just me?
No, I think you're right for the most part. I mean, certainly when we've had, in basketball back when we played Wisconsin and Arkansas and Louisville, I mean, you couldn't find a seat. And in football, when we hosted Indiana and when we hosted Vanderbilt, it was the same type situation.
Or softball or baseballs too.
Exactly. Softball, we host Alabama, and people were filled every seat in the parking garage. But the interesting thing, though, is last year, I'll go back to Steve Lutz's season, and Steve did a great job. I mean, he did exactly what he came here to do, and he did it in year one, which was great. But I did hear some people complain last year, and I understood it, about our non-conference schedule. You know, people were frustrated about the non-conference schedule and wanted us to bring in more recognizable teams and names. Well, I feel like we did that. You know, we made a conscious effort to do that this year. Wichita State, Marshall, Murray, you know, there was a concentrated effort to bring those kind of games in to Diddle Arena, and to your point, it didn't make any difference in attendance. You know, everybody a year ago said, well, if you have games like that, it'll help your crowds. Well, we had games like that, and it didn't help our crowds. So we'll have to keep working at it. You know, certainly the Power 4 moved the needle. There's no question about it. But, you know, again, a great fan base is somebody who comes to every game to see you play regardless of who you play, and that's what we need more of. We have some like that, but we need more.
Just back to the field house too, you said,
Yeah.
Looking at September, October, will you be able to utilize it at all before you have an official opening? Are you going to have like a soft opening? Is it gradual? How do you plan to utilize that?
Yeah, we don't know for sure yet. I think as soon as we're able to use it in any format at all, we will. You know, and it'll get heavy use. I know that, and I don't know to what extent this will be the case in the 2025 football season, but certainly moving forward, that'll be a part of game day in football. You know, I think that'll be a fan interactive area for football game day. You know, it'd be crazy not to utilize that space. So we'll use it a lot. I know probably some local high schools will probably want to use it as well. You know, so we'll certainly utilize it a lot. I hope it's, you know, done sooner rather than later, but there'll be maximum use, and all of our sport programs will have access to it. It won't just be football. I mean, it'll be obviously an indoor training, conditioning area year round that'll be available, which is something we don't have right now.
Give me an idea of what you mean by that. How would the fans be able to benefit from that on a game day?
Well, there's a lot of ways, like at what they did at Liberty. You know, we noticed when we went there, when we go on the road, you know, we walk around and just see what other people, it's a copycat industry. Everybody always looks and sees what other people do. And it was a premium area for Liberty. It wasn't free, but it wasn't enormously expensive, and you could pay to go in there pregame, and they had food and they had drinks and they had bounce houses for kids, and it was just kind of a little bit of a different area, a little more of a private area. So that's one possibility. Not saying that's exactly what we'll do, but you know, that's one possibility. It almost like another tailgate area.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.